Yo, it's your boy Vegabomber here, and welcome to Vegabomber Land. Well, I can't believe it, but already this year, 2016, is already halfway over. And so you know what that means. Yeah, it means it's time for my half-year report in terms of movies, like which were the best movies in 2016 that I've seen so far. So if you're ready, go grab some popcorn, sit down, and let me tell you about the movies that I've seen this year that have made it into my top 10 thus far, which, as you know, is subject to change as the rest of the movies come out the rest of the year, which then, of course, I will talk about in my year-in review for 2016 as it relates to movies. But for now, let's get into it, shall we? So, before I jump into it, let me do this though. Let me tell you about these movies and how these movies got on my list. First of all, I picked movies that were enjoyable, as well as movies that were fun, and movies that I can really say that I would actually watch again. In fact, rewatchability is a big part as to whether these films would even make it onto my list anytime, so that's a big part of it. And I'll also explain why these films are where they are on my list, because you might be wondering, well, how did you put that movie there but this movie over here? Well, I'll definitely explain it. So now that I've got that out of the way, now let me go ahead and jump in. So number 10 is Batman v Superman. Yes, out of all the movies I've seen so far in 2016, this movie just barely makes my top 10, but the reason why it does make my top 10, one actor, Ben Affleck. Now you remember when everyone first heard that Ben Affleck was going to play Batman, there were a lot of people, even including me, that kind of weren't quite sure of it. But then as I started to look back on it, and I remember Ben Affleck's performance in the movie The Town and also Argo, I was able to eventually come around. Well, as it turns out, the reason why this movie is even on my top 10 list, because I was a bit disappointed with it, was because of Ben Affleck. Ben Affleck kills it as Batman, and the way they showed Batman in this film, and just the whole characterization of Bruce Wayne, and when he was in the suit. It was good enough for me to put this movie into the top 10. Number 9, 13 Hours. The story of the soldiers of Benghazi. Yeah, now this was actually the first movie that I saw in 2016. And what's interesting about this film is that it was actually directed by Michael Bay. Now, usually you say Michael Bay, you think of Transformers, and maybe you think of, I don't know, style over substance. And you would be right, by the way. So, at this point, seeing a Michael Bay film, you might think, but I have to say that knowing who he is and knowing what he's done, to see him take on a real life story, and then I guess just the way he shot this movie, the 13 Hours, the Soldiers of Benghazi, it was really spectacular to watch, just to look at it. Now you can have your own feelings about whether we should have been over there and all the politics surrounding it, but just the story itself that it was telling, which wasn't anything that we haven't heard before, but the way it was shot, I have to give Michael Bay props. I don't care for his other films, other than The Island, but this one, I have to give it a nod, and it did make it to my list. Number 8, Deadpool. Yes, Deadpool was the first superhero movie this year, and by the way, I guess you could say that he's not a superhero, but at any rate, he's the first comic book person that had a film this year, and I would say that the Deadpool movie was pretty good. Now, let me say it this way. I'm not a Deadpool fan, and I'm not a Ryan Reynolds fan, so that's two big knocks it had going against it. But when I went in, I would say that the first 2/3 of this movie was pretty good. Now I'm going to say that really Deadpool is about novelty, because the first rated R superhero film in a while. I know Kick-Ass, I know about Blade, but this was the first one, and it's probably going to mark a trend of other superhero movies getting that rated R label too, which can be a good or bad thing depending on how it's used. But I would say in this film, the first 2/3 of the film, yeah, it was funny, it was entertaining. I could see where you could go out, have a beer, and find this movie a riot. But at the same time, the third half of this movie is the reason why it's in the lower of the top 10, because that last third of the movie was pretty unmemorable, forgettable. But hey, it's Deadpool, a lot of people wanted it, and they got it, and Ryan Reynolds is probably the best person to play Deadpool, and that's coming from somebody who's not a real big Ryan Reynolds fan. Number 7, another X-Men property, the XMen Apocalypse. So this movie, what can I say about this movie? This movie, again, was dogged by the critics, much like Batman v Superman, but this movie, also like Batman v Superman, wasn't as bad as the critics had kind of put out there. But at the same time, it's not as good as it should be by now. You know, 8 years of making superhero movies, if you look at it from at least the Disney Marvel perspective, should have some better movies from this. Now, I know this film was done by Fox, but there's enough templates out there of how to make a good superhero film that isn't just digital CGI effects, sand, wind, the elements, people flying, I mean, people getting thrown through buildings, and okay, we've seen that already. So Apocalypse doesn't deliver from that perspective. But why is it at number 8 and slightly ahead of Deadpool, which some of you are probably cursing me already just for that? Again, it goes back down to solid acting, and that would be from James McAvoy as Professor X, and also Michael Fassbender playing Magneto. Those two always deliver in these films. They always create a certain gravitas that makes this film go up a couple of notches, and that's why I have it ahead of Deadpool, because Deadpool won't be known for its acting. It was fine, but you could actually make a case for Fassbender and McAvoy in this film. And by the way, Oscar Isaac was not bad, given the fact that he had to play somebody like Apocalypse. Let's see you convert that over from a comic book to real time without making it goofy. Oscar Isaac found a way to do that. So for me, that was good enough for that movie to be at number 7. Number 6 is The Conjuring 2. Yes, a sequel to a horror film. Now, The Conjuring 2 was something I just saw recently. This was a really good film. I actually liked this film a lot. I liked it better than the first one. Now, some people like the first one better, but that's okay. But I kind of dug it. I think the story here is about the acting, the performances, and you get what could be very easily just a jump scare movie with very few jump scares in it, and the moments that you really are supposed to be frightened don't depend on just loud noises all of a sudden, and there's not the fake outs of the black cat walking across the room. Now, there's some other tropes for haunted houses, but you know, you're going to have that. That's just like a superhero movie, not having people punch each other. Although I hear they did do that in Superman Returns. I don't know. But at any rate, The Conjuring 2 is worth it. It's definitely a good film. And I think if you go see the film, if you haven't seen the film, you will see why it's number 6, just barely outside of my top 5 for 2016 thus far. And now, the top 5 of 2016 of what I've seen in the movie theaters so far. And number 5 is Jungle Book. Yes, Jungle Book. I remember reading this story as a kid. Disney, I mean, you can't go wrong. But here's what's great about the film. The film has what you would think would be a lot of animation in it, but it does have CGI in it, but the CGI is actually pretty good. So the Jungle Book, the way it looks, you would think they would have just done it as an animated feature, but it's not. It's live action, and I think they crossed a barrier with that. So I did like this film. I do recognize the property. I love the property. And so it wasn't too hard for Disney to sell me on the Jungle Book. And by the way, it was pretty good. Now, it would have been maybe a little higher, but I don't know, there were certain parts of it that I just kind of stepped away from. I just thought that the animals, the way they were just in battle, but then later on, hey, he's fine though, just seemed a little kind of, well, telling. I mean, you can't have everybody live. Somebody's got to die. There's got to be stakes. And so, yeah, I know. Maybe that sounds dark for a Disney movie, but I don't know. It just seemed like they were not afraid. They were too afraid to pull the trigger on that. So, but either way, the film is still in my top 5. Number 4, this one is an animated feature, and that would be Zootopia. Zootopia, yes. It's actually really more of a commentary about humans, but I like how they just took animals from the different species and groups and just put them in the city and just kind of basically mirrored what we look like in real life, but also made it fun. There's some moments where it got serious, but at the same time, you also felt for Hops. You know, you wanted to see her make it as a cop, and she does. And of course, I would say that the voice acting, you know, it was pretty good. Couldn't complain about it, but Zootopia actually had a little oomph with it. Still think Shrek is better, but this isn't bad. This isn't bad at all. In fact, this might even be just a little bit better than the Lego movie as far as I'm concerned. Bam! That's right. Top 3. We're getting into the top 3 films of 2016 as far as movies I've seen thus far. And number 3 is the Jesse Owens biopic, Race. Now, this movie, I know a bunch of people probably didn't get to go see because it's not the big summer blockbuster movie. But if you want to see a movie about somebody who stood up to tyranny and oppression and just won with their gift, almost like superhero-like, this very easily could have been a superhero. I mean, Jesse Owens won 4 medals back in these Olympics in the late 30s. and he did it in Germany and in front of Hitler in Hitler's house. So yeah, what's not to like about that? But the actor Stephen James, who plays Jesse Owens, I think he nailed it. I think he looked the part, he acted the part, and then I think the drama that was put in there was solid. Jeremy Irons is also in it, who played Alfred in Batman v Superman, but he plays Avery Brunch in this movie. He does a great job at being on the Olympic team committee and going in to speak for why they should actually have the Olympics and not let Hitler keep America from going. Because at one point, America was deciding they didn't want to go. But we got turned around on that and we went. And also Jason Sudeikis, who you know would be a funny character, he actually plays a good regular model here. Just a regular straight guy in this movie, not going for the laughs and the yucks. Although there are some funny lines in it. He does a great job of just playing a dramatic actor in this film. So what's not to like? And the movie's called Race with a double entendre in it. So nice job. Thought that was a great film, and it's probably a film that you didn't see. So you now know number 3 on the Vegabomber's list. And number 2, the runner-up to my number 1 film, the number 2 film that I've seen this year that I thoroughly enjoyed, think that you should go out and watch it on DVD now or video on demand, is Eye in the Sky. Eye in the Sky was excellent. You talk about a movie where you're sitting back thinking about, well, what's the right thing to do? Should they go in and enact this one plan, or should they wait because there's a human that's in the way that if they do something there will be some collateral damage with this human being there? It's almost kind of like another movie, but anyways, this one was based off of really great storytelling and acting. Helen Mirren was the head and chief of the MI6 who could call in the strike, which is why it's called Eye in the Sky. It's a drone that can see, and they have these people that are number 3 and 4 on the hit list of people that need to be taken out because they're really, really bad people. And it's all about, you're going to make the call, will you do it with civilians around? The tension is marvelous. If you liked Argo and the tension created in Argo, then you'll like Eye in the Sky. And definitely I enjoyed it when it comes out on DVD. I could easily say that I would own it. Then now, number 1. I'm here, the best movie that I've seen in 2016 so far, meaning that I was extremely entertained, meaning that when the DVD comes out, or the Blu-ray when it comes out, I'm buying it, and I'm buying the special edition because it was great. That movie is the 3rd installment of the Captain America films, Civil War. Yes, this movie blew me away. I think it just raised the level of comic book movies up to another level. Because to me, this movie is better than the first Avengers. And I think it's pretty neck and neck with Winter Soldier, but I'll have it just a tick over Winter Soldier just because of the different elements in this film. So Civil War was an excellent superhero film. It was the superhero film we've been waiting for since we saw Winter Soldier. And by the way, the Captain America films just seem to get better and better and better. The first one was, but the second one was great, and this one is great, if not even a tick greater. So Captain America Civil War is, hands down, bar none, the best movie in 2016 that I've seen thus far. And that would be here, day after July 4th weekend. Halfway through the year, that's my number 1 film. So, tell me, what do you think? Do you agree with this list? Did you have some films in here that maybe I don't? Well, put them in the comments below. Let me know. And subscribe if you haven't. And if you like this content and you want to know more, you want to hear more about my madness of how I rank and look at films, then go ahead and definitely make sure you subscribe, definitely comment, and definitely share. Anyway, my name is the Vegabomber. I'm welcoming you again to Vegabomber Land. So anyway, before I end this video, I need to make sure I give a couple of shout outs. First shout out goes to Arwalt95. Thanks for subbing, dude. Thanks for subbing. Also, Jonathan Minnow. Thanks for the sub, dude. Thanks for the sub. Also want to thank Vanessa Daly. Thanks for the sub. And finally, last but not least, hey Kenny, I heard about the back injury. I'm wishing you well. Wishing you well from Vegabomber Land. Take care of that back, son. You're gonna need it. Anyway, now I'm out of here. You